crowd cheer out to the 35. This time London. He held on. He's on to slip through and score. Bates blocking. Jesse Bates interception. 15, 10, 5, drive home safely.
Dirty Birds, what's up, and welcome back to Final Whistle. We have a very exciting Falcons win to talk about. The Falcons beat the Commanders 34-27 in their return back to Mercedes-Benz Stadium on Sunday. They will head into the bye week at 2-2, a crucial rebound performance for the Falcons today. Tori.
Yes, it was everything that this offense particularly needed it to be. They needed a response from being shut out against the Carolina Panthers last weekend, and I think they did everything offensively that I was hoping that they would have been doing for all 4 games this season, but I will take this performance as a step in the right direction, especially considering what happened last week in Carolina, and the fact that someone like Michael Penix was able to bounce back the way he was, I think is a testament to what the Falcons have in him specifically.
Absolutely. So for those of you who may be joining us for our first Final Whistle of the season, a quick refresher. We're going to do 4 quarters, 4 topics for you, 6 minutes each. Tori and I are going to go back and forth, discuss the game, be in and out, and get you on your way on this victory Monday. So Tori, up top, we're going to start a little bit with the offensive performance. As you said, it was the bounce back that they needed. What was the most impressive part of their performance?
I mean, I feel like the low-hanging fruit is Bijan Robinson. Bijan Robinson was
he's always
a point, an exclamation point in their offensive operation. Everything. I think what you wrote in our little document that we're working off of here is that he remains the engine for this offense, and that couldn't have been more true than it was today. And he's putting up these numbers every single week that shows you why he's so important to this offensive operation, but also, 2, how special of an athlete he truly is. I mean, He had over 100 receiving yards today to go along with over 75 rushing yards. I mean, his performance, I don't know if this offense is the same without Bijan Robinson in it. And he is just a very special player. I mean, heck, he had a first down run today that I swear, it was a 12-yard run, but I swear he picked up half of those yards running backwards. He's just such a fun player to watch operate. And I think that he is, Michael Penix Jr. said it himself after the game where, someone asked the question of what does your confidence level feel like when you get to hand the ball off to Bijan? Not like when you hand, but when you get to hand the ball off to Bijan. And he's like, every time I get to do that, I feel like we're in a pretty good spot. And it's true. Like when Bijan Robinson gets his hands on the ball, good stuff happens.
Absolutely. I mean, he had 181 total yards from scrimmage today, 75 on the ground, 106 through the air. I kind of feel like his best friend in the world right now is that right sideline at Mercedes-Benz where he's just kind of running scot-free on the swing pass. The only thing that I would change would be to have Caleb McGarry right in front of him leading the way because, man, that would be just so much fun to watch this season, specifically with Bijan right behind him. But there was a note from Next Gen Stats that I feel like is very emblematic of just kind of the way that he played today. He reached 21.85 miles per hour on that 69-yard reception, 67 yards of which came after the catch. And that was the fastest of his career. I mean, I know that explosive plays were a big kind of focus for this offense coming in. Do you think through 4 games that goal has kind of been, it's hard to say achieved because it's only 4 games in, but he feels like a little bit more of an explosive player this year.
I mean, you think about week 1, he had that 50-yard run. Today he has a 69-yard run. Catch and run, I should say. But I think that
those are always hard, though, because it's kind of like he basically did all the work. That's like the easiest throw Michael Penix is going to have all game.
The thing is, I think I know the 69-yarder is what everybody's talking about, but I actually think his touchdown run up the middle where he breaks like 4 or 5 tackles, he pinballs and spins his way into the end zone. I thought that was even more impressive and more indicative of Bijan Robinson and who he is as an athlete. So I just loved watching him today, and I'm so glad that we get to talk about his performance in the context of a win.
Yes, absolutely, and it is truly just such a joy to watch a special player like this, but it was also a joy to watch Michael Penix out there today. After a really, really poor performance, I think, in Carolina, he bounced back in a big way. So what did we learn about Michael Penix Jr. today?
I think that we learned that he can and always has been able to handle adversity, even throughout his college career, even, coming in with the last 3 games of 2024 and performing the way he did last year. The first 3 games of the season has not been what we have known Michael Penix to be. The Falcons were not pushing the ball super downfield. It was a bit more conservative in kind of these shorter routes, or not shorter routes, but shorter completions that he was, throwing for the first 3 games. This Sunday was the first Sunday that we saw him air the ball out. He looked like the confident version of himself, and even to the point where the Falcons had, I think Michael Penix Jr. off the top of my head, I hope I'm correct in saying this, but he had 8 passes of 15 or more air yards today. How much have we been talking about over the course of the last 3 games? The fact that hasn't manifested. Those downfield throws have not manifested. And it happened today. Not only did it happen today, but he was completing those passes. And I felt like today felt like the Michael Penix of what we expected him to be at this point in his career, and maybe even a little bit farther. There's the 300 passing yards and getting Kyle Pitts involved, getting Drake London involved. I just thought what he was able to do was very impressive. And the fact that Drake London and Bijan Robinson are the first wide receiver running back duos since 1981 to go for over 100 receiving yards, that was a fascinating stat to me. And it all comes from Michael Penix and his confidence and comfortability in the pocket today, which I thought you could feel more than you didn't.
Yeah, that's crazy. 44 years ago.
I know,
Congrats to those guys. But no, I thought Michael Penix was really good at just kind of, like you said, attacking downfield, but doing it wisely. Mm-hmm. He's 1 of 19 on those air yards of 15 or more coming into this game, and today he was 5 of 8. And I thought the Falcons, they were 6 of 12 on 3rd down, did a really good job of kind of converting in those situations when they needed to and really kind of keep stringing those drives along. I thought, one of my favorite plays for Michael Penix was when he was rolling out to his left, and he kind of wanted to throw the ball downfield, but it was very clear, you could pick up the first down with your legs. Mm-hmm. And the crowd was kind of run.
Right.
And he was still looking downfield because he's a big game hunter, Tori. He wants to take those deep shots, and that's what I love about him. Oh, there's our first whistle. We're going to move right along to the second quarter. And Tori, I want to talk a little bit about the contrast that this game presented with the home opener here in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. It looked kind of similar in some ways, but with key differences. In the first game, I kind of felt like the Falcons were the better team, and they made some of the mistakes that ultimately end up costing you wins. Today, it kind of felt like they were the better team, and they didn't make those mistakes, and they were forcing Washington into some of those mistakes. Did it feel like that to you? It
definitely did, and I also think that the fact that the Falcons were able to run the ball as well as they did with Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson, I'm trying to think of what their yards per carry. Yeah, Bijan Robinson had a 4.4 yards per carry average. Tyler Algier was 3.2, and a lot of Tyler's yards towards the end of the game came in that fourth quarter when they're bleeding the clock, which
those were an important 3.2.
Important, yes.
And it also, that probably doesn't do him justice because those were yards earned in a moment where everybody knew you were going to run the ball.
Yeah, and I was just really, to your point about the key difference, to me, it had to be the running game because the Falcons could not run the ball well against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I don't think that Washington's defense is anything to overlook by any means. No. And I think what I was really excited about was how balanced as well the offense felt. And that was not something that we felt in week 1. That there was this balance because they couldn't run the ball. They were averaging collectively, I think, a little over 2 yards per carry, and they weren't picking up first downs on the run. They weren't having good first down runs at all, I feel like. And so going into this game, and it felt more indicative of exactly what this offense wants to be. When you look at this stat line and you have Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, Drake London, all of these guys involved, and Michael Penix leading this group in both the run and the pass. I mean, I just felt like this was the performance that we've been waiting on for this Falcons offense.
100%. And hopefully it's a springboard. I know they got the bye week. In some ways, you're like, man, carry this momentum, keep it going. Let's play again next Sunday. But you do have an opportunity to kind of look at what worked, what didn't, make some tweaks, and get back out there with a big game. I thought, offensively, the balance was very important. This was a Commanders defense that was coming in with a really high pressure rate. They like to get after the opposing quarterback. Michael Penix only sacked one time in this game.
And he was pretty clean. I mean, for all of those deep down, the key for those downfield throws is that he has time in the pocket to allow those routes to manifest. And so we saw him, he was fairly clean the whole entire game. So you have to give kudos to that offensive line as well.
Well, and I think another side effect of that is kind of allowing those plays to develop downfield stretches the defense and spreads it out, then when you dump it off to Bijan in the flat, there's way more room to work with.
Yeah.
Against Carolina, it felt like he was going boom, boom, Bijan.
Yeah.
And the defense hadn't really kind of just dissipated yet, and it was still all really zeroed in. And so today it felt like there's just a lot more room to operate and work with. And then again, in that fourth quarter, when Washington cuts it back to that one possession game and you're like, all right, this is the NFL, things can get a little interesting. It's the witching hour, as they like to say on the red zone. But the Falcons kind of didn't blink. They just went right down the field with Tyler Algier and ended up tacking on a field goal to kind of keep that distance there. That was really important to see. And then flipping over on the defensive side, I thought that they did a great job shutting down a run game that has been kind of one of the best in the league. And even when, Jaden Daniels isn't in there, Marcus Mariota can hurt you with his legs. He only gained 20 yards on the ground. And I thought that was a big difference between what they did with Baker in week 1 and some of those crucial scrambles that he had to kind of keep those drives going and the way they were able to contain Washington today.
Agreed. I think going into this game, it was something that we had talked about all week long, is that an Achilles heel of potentially this defense is the scrambling quarterback, because you saw what Baker did against them. You saw what Bryce Young did against them and how they were able to move the chains because they could pick the ball up and run it. And I know that Marcus Mariota had that 122-yard scramble on third down, but the amount of times that I feel like this defense made Marcus Mariota so uncomfortable that he was throwing it away. There was an intentional grounding. There were a couple times where if he doesn't get the ball out, it's a sack. And I think that people will look at this defensive performance and kind of feel like it's a little lackluster compared to what maybe some of the defensive performances of the last 3 weeks have been. But I think because of the way that Washington's offense operates, you knew that this was going to be a bit more difficult of a challenge for this defense specifically because of the way that Washington likes to play. But you have to, again, give credit where credit is due, that the defense did what they could, and the offense, even when the defense kind of messed up, they allowed a 24-yard touchdown reception on 4th and 3.
Yeah.
Even when that happened, the offense picked them up. And that's what playing good complementary football is all about. And I think that's what we saw today.
Yeah, I think that's how you prevent the lulls from happening, where it kind of, if one side is really playing well and then you pick it up, the energy's going in the building, maybe then keeping that going, paying it forward helps. But if you bring it back down to earth offensively or defensively, having a unit like Atlanta's defense that's able to step in there and say, hey, don't worry, we can get a quick 3 and out, get you guys back on the field, keep the energy going, keep the rhythm flowing. I really thought you felt that kind of holistic style of Atlanta's football team come to life today. Yeah,
I do too. And I mean, let's talk about Xavier Watts as well. Let's make a point. Okay, fine.
Talk about him real quick.
I thought that, he that interception was such a pivotal point of the game.
It was huge.
And this is now the second interception in 4 games for Xavier Watts. You're really still excited about this young core. I'm sorry.
Don't disrespect my whistle.
I know. I feel bad because the whistle told me to stop, and I was like, but Xavier Watts.
No, it's important. We got to mention Xavier Watts because that was a huge play. But it is our halftime break, and so I want to bring you a quick stat brought to you by Microsoft Copilot, which was very helpful in building today's podcast outline. Drake London, let's talk a little bit about him. He caught 8 of his 10 targets for 110 yards against the Commanders, but a lot of his work came in the slot. on 6 of his 11 routes in which he was targeted. 5 of those were from the slot, and he got 81 yards and his touchdown. Drake has been just a beast in the slot.
Yes.
We know that is something that the Falcons really like to do with him, is move him around to get matchups. Because of his blocking ability, because of his size, ability, just the catch radius, he's amazing from the slot. What did you think of Drake's game today?
I thought that he was great, but it was something he said in the locker room after when he was asked about, what does this performance do for the confidence of this team and everything. And he made the comment, like, it's everything. And he said, I'm sure this win meant the world to some of these guys in this locker room. And then he kind of added, I know it meant the world to me. And I know that Drake London over the last 3 games has only had 156 total yards, and he had 110 today. It just goes to show you how quickly things can change, especially if you're fantasy football team owners.
Yes, hopefully you kept Drake in your starting lineups. But that was our halftime break, brought to you by Microsoft Copilot. Let's move right along to the third quarter. Tori, they're going to head into the bye week at 2-2. I know a lot of people were worried. All right, after these 4 games, tough 4 games, are you going to go into the bye week 1-3 with the Buffalo Bills coming out, and then you got the San Francisco 49? Oh my gosh, what's happening?
Both of those on prime time slots.
Yeah, people were ready to snowball. I think they were ready to be like, oh my gosh, this season's over before it even got started. Lo and behold, you're 2-2. You go back in, add even, you can kind of reset. How important was it to get this win going into that bye week?
Oh, I think it's incredibly important because it's important for confidence. I think this offense needed to show the fan base, show the league at large, and honestly a little bit show themselves who they are, because this is the type of offense, I said it at the beginning, but this is the type of offense and the production that it should be the not bare minimum for what this team does, but it should be the standard.
Yeah.
Last week, Bijan Robinson, Drake London, all these guys talked about, like, that was not our standard. What we did in Carolina, that's not our standard. That's not who we are. And I think I even said on the post-game podcast last week, it's like, okay, well, show us who you are, because for 3 games, I don't know if I know who you are.
Yeah.
And I thought that they did that today. I thought that they stepped up and did what they were supposed to do. And I also think that interesting enough, as we were talking in the first quarter about like key differences between week 1 and week 4, I think Michael Penix said too that moving Zach Robinson from the coach's box down to the sideline was really good for the Falcons at this point in time. I think Zach Robinson called it a reset during the week, and I think that ended up being very true, because talking to Michael Penix about that move, and he was like, it was really good for us because I'm able to come off the sideline, have one-on-one conversations with him about what I'm seeing, what he's wanting us to do, what we could do in the next series out, like just having that effective communication and it being more organic and not Zach Robinson calling down into a headset with TJ Yates or Dwayne Ledford to walk over and talk to Mike. Like, no, you cut all of that middleman crap out and you get in there and you have good, important conversations to where you can put drives together. And that was another thing that really, I think, builds confidence within this offense, is the fact that, okay, in week 1, you had that first drive and you're feeling good, but you could never get it going again. Against the Washington Commanders, you were constantly putting good drives together.
Yep.
You were scoring points. And I think that has a ripple effect, a snowball effect, and you hope that you can do it again moving forward, because that was the big thing, is like, if the Falcons were to have lost this game, you go into the bye week 1 and 3, the obvious elephant in the room is that you could potentially be 1-5 after the Buffalo Bills and San Francisco 49ers game in 2.5-3 weeks. So this was a huge moment, I think, for this offense from a confidence standpoint and also just from a record standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was a really good, like, can you kick it into gear game, right? Because like you said, if you go into this and you are 1-3, like, this felt like a mini gotta have it game for these reasons. So what would be your confidence level that you can then turn it on against the Bills or the 49ers if those become gotta have it games? So the fact that they were able to really kind of flip the switch and play to their standard, like you said, after not doing so against Carolina, does speak volumes, does show me something that this is the standard, and I do have a little bit more confidence that they know how to reach that more frequently because they were able to kind of flip that page really quickly after a tough loss. But the reset comes at a very good time. There were a couple of injuries that occurred during this game. Natron Brooks, concussion, Darnell Mooney, hamstring, a couple other guys who started the season on IR, designated return, or the PUP list. All of that could, in week 5, like they can come back.
Yeah,
or in week 6.
Yeah, it can come into play. You also have AJ Terrell that they're pinpointing for a post-bye week return as well. He's been working through the hamstring, has missed the last 2 games.
Yep.
Like
this could feel like a healthier, fresher, different team coming out of the bye.
It absolutely could, and I think that would be the hope. Like, obviously, we don't have any more, like, new information on Troy Anderson or Storm Norton or TQ. Like, we don't know. Braylon Trice, like, even, like, I think his injury, just from the way that Raheem was talking at the beginning of the season, felt a little bit more serious. But, like, we don't know kind of what the future holds for this group, but getting some options healthy at the bare minimum helps you in depth.
Of those players, is there one that you kind of circle to be like, man, I really maybe take AJ out of it because he is the starter, right?
Yeah.
But is it Troy? Is it Storm Norton? Is it Darnell really kind of getting back in action?
To me, it's Darnell.
Yeah.
To me, Darnell Mooney, getting him back to 100%. He missed all of training camp with that shoulder. I think it was still kind of bugging him through the first couple of weeks, and now he has a hamstring. It just kind of feels like one thing after the other, and it's like, and I know too he was a bit disappointed in his performance even with Carolina and having a couple drops, and he missed a lot of time on the grass, and so he's still even trying to acclimate himself to the speed of the game again.
Yep. And a new quarterback. It's like all of the things.
And I think Darnell Mooney's in a really tough spot, and I'm pretty sympathetic towards what he's having to deal with all of these injuries and new quarterbacks and everything. But I think if you can get him through the bye week, you can get him back on track. You'll see the Darnell Mooney from last year. I think there are a lot of things stacked against him right now, and you need to kind of get those things out of the way so he can be who he is.
Yeah, I always encourage players to go take all the time off during the bye week that they can. However, I would be very curious to see what Darnell's doing during his bye week. Because he could stand to benefit from just a lot of time and reps out there on the grass. Not that that's exactly how he's going to use it. Go get some rest, my guy. You've earned it. All right, Tori, fourth quarter time. We're going to wrap things up just by talking about the Falcons in this 4-game block.
Yeah.
What have we learned about this team that maybe we didn't expect coming into the year? What are some things that we maybe expected that we haven't seen? Is there one thing that kind of stands out to you as when we were talking at the end of training camp, looking at the season as in totality about to start? If I had told you, hey, this pass rush is going to be here, would you believe? If I had told you, hey, the running game didn't get going in week 1, where are you at with this 4-game block?
I think for me, it stems from the defense. I think the defense is so much farther along than what I thought they would be at this point in the season. I remember even, this is a plug for a story series and a very big feature project that Will, Taryn, and myself have been working on for the last few weeks, where we sat down with Jeff Ulbrich and we went over his defensive coaching philosophy of heart, mind, fist and what that means and how it manifests. And it's been a great conversation, but in the conversation that we had with him in his office a couple weeks ago, he made the comment that, initially I feel like it's not, not everything is going to be exactly what we want it to be, and this could maybe be a slower start defensively. I don't want to get people's hopes up, really tampering expectations to kind of be like, hey, we're installing a new system, a new way to play, a new style of play.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take time.
Yeah.
And I fully was 100% willing and ready to give the defense time to figure themselves out. I think we know who this defense is. Mm-hmm. I think they've shown us who they are over 4 games. I think they're an exciting bunch. I want to see a bit more consistency in pass rush, because sometimes it's which I think is probably a little bit nitpicky of me, but because I'm sitting here being like,
come on, what, you want pressure rate 48% of the time? They're 44.
I'm so sorry, that was so nitpicky, but I do think that I have been really excited to see what this defense is and how they've played and how they played together. Seeing guys like Brandon Dorless, Ruka Roro, those guys, Divine Diablo, some new names. Do some Billy Bowman Jr. for gosh sake, some new names, some newer faces, making a pretty big impact and doing things really well and being an exciting group to watch. And I think that just means that, okay, they already surpassed my expectations for what this first 4 block was. Like, I'm leveling up my expectations for the group is what I ultimately think that if you would have told me in week 1 prior to that Tampa Bay game, like where I would want the defense to be, I would have said there's no way that they have 10 sacks by the bye week. No, it's going to take time. The fact that it hasn't taken that much time for us to see kind of the fruits of the labor put in over the offseason by all the acquisitions, the draft picks, et cetera, like that just means I'm moving on up. We're leveling up with this defense. I'm expecting more out of them.
I love that. And I remember that conversation kind of with Brick that you're referencing. And part of that is because Brick is not a puppet master on game day, right? Like he doesn't necessarily want to be like, everything's dependent on the play that I'm calling or I'm out scheming the offensive coordinator. A lot of what he says is the style comes from the players out there on the field, right? And so I think that is where the interconnectivity, there's always just going to be an element of unknown to that going into a season where you're like, we've got new pieces. How are they going to play together? It could start slow. It could start fast. It started fast. And I think that is a credit to the guys they have on this defense as well as the coaching staff. And Divine Diablo is a great example of that.
He is, yeah.
Because I was talking to D. Alford in the locker room after today's game, and he just kind of like out of the blue brought up Divine Diablo, and he was like, man, he is so freaking good. Like his coverage ability, and this is D kind of talking, he was like, he is maybe one of the best defenders of the dig route that like I've ever seen.
That
and he was like,
sense,
as a corner, that is just one of the toughest routes to cover based on the way that it's set up, kind of the depth that it happens, the leverage, and having a linebacker who's able to drop into that throwing window. We saw it today.
Yeah.
Divine just getting his big old mitt up there and knocking it down. He's like, that gives me so much more kind of confidence and allows me to play looser as a cornerback because I have faith that my guy's going to be there to make the play in that window and the throw's not going to be there. So I just kind of think it's the right combination of coach, scheme, mindset, style, but also the small additions that they've made this offseason to complement the players that were already here.
Yeah, small additions that are making giant dividends, I think, for this unit.
I felt bad saying small additions because they've been like huge additions, TBH. But yeah, I just kind of can't believe how good the defense has looked so far, and I don't want to jinx it. What about, really quickly, offensively, was there anything that, the run game has gotten turned around a little bit, so I think we feel better about that spot. Anything that you want to see from the offense maybe after the bye week? Show
us what you just showed us again.
Okay.
Consistency. Consistency. I feel like Raheem Morris talks all the time about this emotional roller coaster that you can get on, and I feel like the offense has been so indicative of that emotional roller coaster.
Get off the roller coaster.
Get off of it. I don't want to be on the roller coaster anymore. I want to be on the people mover. Let's just move the ball downfield, get people into the end zone, play clean football, have Bijan Robinson do Bijan Robinson things. And, same thing with Drake London, Michael Penix, Kyle Pitts, Tyler Algier, all of it. I think that we need to see replication because the only way we can be confident that this offensive identity that we saw on Sunday is actually who they are is if they do it again and again and again. So do it again.
Perfect timing. That was our final whistle. I hope they do it many, many more times. But thank you all so much for listening to today's show. We got a big Falcons win to feel good about going into the bye week. I hope everybody has awesome plans, for their bye week, for their weekend off. If you're going to watch football, enjoy that. If you're not, go outside, touch grass. Tori, any messages for the fans before we get out of here?
It's going to be a long season coming out after the bye week, so rest, rejuvenate, recover. I'm going to be on a beach drinking some Aperol Spritz.
Love
so I'll see y'all when we get back. But it is nice to go into this bye week feeling really good about the product that they put on the field on Sunday.
Feeling good about the product on the field. Feeling good about Spritzy season coming up for you.
But it's always Spritz season.
Heck yeah. All right. That'll do it for Falcons Final Whistle. For Tori McElhaney, I am Will McFadden. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you in 2 weeks.